We've talked about how to decorate your deck and zone your deck and stain your deck, but today we're going back to basics to talk about building your deck. General Contractor Mike Lawrence is here to school us on everything we need to know. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Tracy. So listen, decks can be created in many ways to suit everyone's needs, from a small, simple front porch, a little platform to relax on, to super complicated, intricate decks and pool surrounds. But the design, the engineering, the planning of that deck to ensure its longevity, those are the critical components, and that planning part is very important. Now, the project I'm at today is a beautiful home that we built, but we also incorporated a very large front deck with built-in seating, storage, dual staircases for easy access to the yard, a gorgeous third-story roof deck off the office.
Okay, so some folks, not me, feel that they are ready to DIY their own deck. What are a few important things they need to know?
Well, the best place to start is talking about the structure. And the structure is the foundation. And the foundation are the footings or the concrete piers that support everything above it, or the deck's roof. Now, the concrete piers are typically known as zonotubes, is the form that concrete is poured in, which is basically a cylindrical cardboard tube that is dug down to below the frost line. Now, the frost line is about 4 feet deep, Tracy, and if you don't do that and have those footings at that depth, in the winter when the ground freezes, that frost heave can literally lift the posts out of the ground and shift and ruin that deck. So having the proper depth footings and the engineer signing off on that is very important. Now, those footings, the beam that carries the joists, the beam transfers that load of the deck to those concrete footings and transfers it back to the ground. Now, joists, just to make sure we're on the same page, they're the repeated structural components that pick up the deck boards, which transfer it to the beam, which supports the joists, which transfers it down to the concrete piers.
I feel like we learned some of this in science class because it's sounding very sciencey. But the way that frame is built is going to determine the longevity of the deck, isn't it?
Absolutely right, Tracy. Now, that and deck joist spacing is also very important consideration to get that framing correct. Now, this is a general rule. Joists are typically spaced 16 inches on center, and their span or length that they can move or be installed without a beam support is 1.5 times their depth in inches. So a 2x8, now a little math here, a 2x8 is up to 12 feet, 2x10 up to 15, and a 2x12 up to 18 feet, of course. So just remember, the larger the deck, the larger the joists, the greater the span. Now, that is a very quick tutorial on deck structure.
Yeah, for sure, but it's a good one. I know the last time you were here, you shared some helpful guidelines on materials and what's available right now, because everybody wants to renovate. So what are some decking material options? Well,
there's many different options. So let's go through it from a commonality standpoint and price point. So all the structure of every deck is typically built out of pressure-treated material, all right, which is typically spruce, and it's dimensional lumber. Now, pressure-treated lumber is also available in decking. It's called 5/4 decking. You can also use dimensional 2x6 pressure-treated lumber for decks as well. Now, that pressure-treated lumber can be left to weather and will generally fade over time to kind of a silvery patina, but it holds onto that green or brown hue for many years. Or you can stain it or paint it. And we've painted a lot of decks over the years, but it does require some maintenance and recoating every couple of years to make it look fresh. But pressure-treated decking does split and check over time, and it's a little dangerous, with kids and things, because you can get really nasty splinters on it. Now, cedar is another very popular option and one of my favorite materials. However, clear cedar or cedar that doesn't have knots is very expensive and almost impossible to find in Ontario, and very pricey. Now, knotty cedar is available, but it doesn't have the longevity. It's a softwood, it splits, it's splintery, it requires a lot of maintenance. So, in my opinion, not the best option these days. 5-10 years ago, most of the decks we built were made out of cedar. Now, there's also man-made materials or composite decking. Now, they're very pricey as well. However, there's a misconception in the industry that a lot of people think these things are maintenance free, and they're not. They actually have to be pressure washed. They stain, leaves that sit on them leave the imprintation of the leaf and the tannins that are in the leaf. And it does require a lot of cleaning and maintenance. The biggest problem I have with man-made decking is the fact that the composites retain the heat. And on a day like this, you wouldn't be able to stand in your bare feet on a composite deck. You will burn them. So kids and pets and things like that, it's not ideal.
Okay, that is a very good roundup, because I always thought composite materials were no maintenance as well. So thank you for that info. Now, what materials did you use for this project?
This project used a combination of pressure-treated lumber from the fencing, but all the decks and deck surfaces and wall cladding was thermally modified ash. And it's a naturally sourced material. It's a North American hardwood. It's a great material because for a few reasons. It's not free. It's got a beautiful smooth finish and doesn't splinter. Because it goes through the thermally modified process, it's rot resistant and insect proof, which is great. So you get a nice 20-year lifespan out of it. You can maintain it with a light coat of stain to keep the hue and the color, or you can let it just weather, and it develops a beautiful platinum gray patina after about 6 to 8 months of being in the weather, and you never have to touch it again.
Now, we've got to be talking fairly expensive about all of those materials you mentioned, because isn't lumber really, really tough to get your hands on right now?
It is incredibly difficult, and not only is it the lead time difficult, but the quality of the material, because what the mills are pushing out these days, you know, a lot of lumber that's coming to the sites are pretty much hockey sticks. And when you're trying to frame a straight deck, that's complicated. So you're ordering like 15, 20% more lumber to be able to build a deck and make it look great.
Yeah. Mike, before we let you go, any update on the High Park project?
Absolutely. The place looks amazing, Tracy. The kitchen is gorgeous. The floors, the tile, everything has really come together. But the clients have added a third floor, dormer extension, and full landscaping. So we're going to spend the rest of the summer wrapping those items up and have you back after that for the big reveal.
We can't wait to see it. Thank you for the great advice, practical info, really, really good tips for our viewers. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Tracy.